Welcome to Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. I am one of your lovely hosts, Erin, and this is...
I'm Krista.
And this is...
I'm over here, Brandy.
Yes, we have an awesome show tonight. We're super excited.
I'm over here, Brandy. Hold on.
Feedback, girl, feedback.
I know. All right, we're good. We're good now. Everything was popping on
tonight, and we're excited to have everybody here with us. And we have lots of people with us tonight, and which makes it more fun because we have so many different perspectives and so many different ideas. So Krista, why don't you introduce our people?
I sure will. We have a couple co-hosts. D.A. Roberts was going to be on, but he had a computer crash. So we'll have him on again in the future. So filling in for D.A. Anthony totally stepped up to the plate. I definitely appreciate it.
In the middle of a hurricane.
Oh, yeah.
A hurricane. He's in Florida. So
no.
Yeah.
That's called devotion right there, ladies. Devotion.
And then we have Terry. She is a fellow paranormal investigator and researcher. And I found out just a few years ago that she was into the UFO and aliens and has been for many years. So I had no idea about that. And then our guest tonight is Tom Ferrario. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Very well. Very well.
Okay, awesome.
Oh,
Good.
she's been practicing.
I hate flashing names. I'm just saying.
You know how those Italian names can be. I know. It's terrible.
Right, exactly. So we have Tom here with us, and I don't know, for those of you who don't know, Missouri has its own Skinwalker Ranch type place, and it's called Marley Woods. Nobody knows where it is but Tom. It's an undisclosed location, and I want to learn more about it. I've always been very fascinated about Skinwalker Ranch and Bigelow and the whole 9 yards. So Tom has agreed to come on and tell us all about it. So like I said, I had asked Anthony and Terry, to get their perspectives from, the UFO side and the cryptid side of things. And then Erin and Brandy and even Terry, we can, with the paranormal type side of things. So anyway, this should be good. We thank everyone for tuning in. And Tom, do you just want to take off and kind of tell your story and who you are?
Yeah, my name's Tom Ferrario, and got involved with the Mutual UFO Networks. I live in a rural area years ago. I started investigating UFO sightings in my area and got to be the go-to guy because people could trust me, and they knew the element of ridicule wasn't there. And so I will tell you, just in a rural area, it's unbelievable the amount of cases and observations people had. And I got in touch. I felt I owed it to the people to learn a little bit and do it the right way. And called the gentleman, one of the founders of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, Walt Andrus, which was based out of St. Louis, Missouri, where MUFON started. It actually was the Missouri UFO Network in the beginning, and became, internationally, it became the Mutual UFO Network then. But I spoke with Walt Andrus on a long phone call over 4 hours, and he actually made me a section director over the phone because he found out some of my cases overlapped some of the original Blue Book cases that he'd worked with. And so he made me a section director and gave me the name of a very great gentleman named Bruce Whitteman, which was the first state director of MUFON. And I called Bruce, and Bruce got in touch with him, and he actually was a little bit aggravated at me because he said, I make the section directors and you're not even a member of MUFON at the time. And he said, come and meet me and we'll talk and see what we can do. And I got to be very good friends with Bruce. He assigned me to actually a retired Air Force colonel in St. Louis, Missouri, named Jim Cross, and worked under him for 2 years and learned how to do it the right way. And so that was my introduction. And I just might add, we just lost Bruce Whitteman about 6 months ago, and very great loss. And but anyway, that's how I got involved with the Mutual UFO Network and through the Mutual UFO Network, I got to meet one of my all-time mentors, and one of the greatest figures in ufology I've ever met or heard of was Ted Phillips, which he was a protege to Alan Hynek, Professor Alan Hynek of Blue Book, and not thinking in a million years I'd ever end up working with him, but we had a conference in Missouri, and Ted showed up, and I offered my services to him, and he said, "Well, what do you do?" And I told him I'm an electrician by trade, and he said, "Well, you can come out and work with me." And it was a practical association at first. I put up cameras, ran wires for him, and then we got to be close friends over the years. And he introduced me to Marley Woods, and so basically that's my whole story.
Wow, very cool.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
a lot.
It is. You have quite a history here.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Can you go back to the beginning with Marley Woods? You know, what did you know about it going in? What did what were you going in expecting? And
I was going in expecting, I knew of the background, some of the stories from Ted's. And of course, I will just say Marley Woods is a totally fictitious name that Ted thought up to protect the location and the people, and not to just build intrigue, but to actually protect the people, the participants, and the landowners. And he felt he owed it to them, and I carry on that tradition. I will not divulge their identities or location. And there again, he had over 300 witnesses in this area.
Wow.
And here again, these people would not even share a lot of this with their families. They only shared it with us. They didn't want to be known for it publicly or their names involved. So there was no monetary gain there. It taught Ted the credibility of these witnesses and how real it was. So that, I went in there expecting what Ted documented. And however, I will tell you, it far exceeded my expectations. And it introduced us and myself into people I never thought I'd meet. Through Ted Phillips, some of his friends with the Alan Hynek Blue Book days, like Jacques Vallée. He went out there and worked with us at times, and I got to meet and work. And it doesn't get any better than that, working with Jacques Vallée.
Right.
Believe me. And Douglas Trumbull, the man that did the special effects on Close Encounters and Brainstorm and 2001's. And I mean, he made a lot of it specialized equipment to catch UFOs on photography. And but when I got out there, the high strangeness in the area and what we experienced, I was never prepared for, and never in a million years thought I personally would encounter. So
Can you tell us what your first experience was in Marley Woods?
Yeah, my first experience, and some people come out there, and sometimes it takes some individuals 2 or 3 trips before they experience anything, and other people come out there, and before they get their bags unpacked, they start experiencing things. And I was like Ted Phillips. I was a nuts and bolts man. When Ted started with Alan Hynek, he did the field research, the compaction test in the soil. When there'd be a landing of a craft, he would do where the landing pods would put indentations. He would take compaction tests and estimate these things at 10 to 20 ton, 20, 30 foot disc. And that's where I wanted to be, in that realm. And, but as Ted always said, that Alan Hynek was so far ahead of his time, and Jacques Vallée, it's so much more than that. That's landing craft, interplanetary is just too simplistic. And Ted actually had a falling out with Alan Hynek for a year because he didn't want to go into paranormal aspect. And in my area, when I had a Bigfoot sighting in conjunction or paranormal with a UFO sighting, I wrote it off. I didn't want to do it. But, I was so schooled that, as Ted even found out, and it's all comes from the same source. It's interdimensional, and it's all involved in this high strangeness. And And Marley Woods had it all. We had structured craft, we had cryptids, we had paranormal events, and my first actually experience was more in the paranormal realm, which I wasn't ready for in any way. I'll tell you.
Right.
Ted Phillips told me when we had a 2-story structure that the property owner on site 1 built, Ted, and Ted told me about this phenomena when we first started, when I got out there, and I just kind of filed it away and didn't put much into it. And my first experience, the first night I stayed there, Ted told me about this phenomena. I was sleeping, and about 3 a.m. in the morning, I physically was awake. Something shook me, and I got out of bed, and it has a big deck around this upper structure where we slept. And I just had a sense of euphoria that I thought I was going to see the mothership, that something was in contact with me. And I ran out on the deck. There was nothing out there. And my state of euphoria almost went into depression. Because I couldn't explain this feeling I had, and there was absolutely nothing there. Well, that I could perceive. I believe there was something there, and I went in and woke Ted up, which was something you really don't ever want to do, wake Ted up. And I told him what had happened, and he looked at me and he just said, "Well, welcome to Marley, Tom," and he went back to sleep. So
how long had Ted been researching out there before you were out there?
I had been out there. My first trip out there was around 2003 or 4, and Ted had been out there since 97.
Wow, it's a long time. Okay. Another question: is this property roughly how many acres? How many homesteads? How many?
Yeah, it's 2 pieces. There's 2 ranch owners out there. One ranch is comprised on site 2 and 3 of around 1,200 acres, and site 1 is comprised under around 800 acres, and you're dealing with 2 to 3 miles east and west, and 2 miles north and south. So that's a lot of real estate,
right?
For 3 people. Sometimes we had 4 people in our team out there, and that's a lot of real estate to cover.
Right. We do have a quick question, real quick. Kim Libby asked, "Do any ley lines run through the property?"
We researched that, and not to any degree, not anything specific that sets it out of the norm from any of the surrounding area. So it's, and Ted, I might throw in there, it got to Ted, so under his skin, he tried to find out over the years what differentiated this piece of property from any other locale in Missouri. And he never could geologically, the topography, he just never could find anything that set it apart from any other piece of property.
So when he was originally first called out there, was he called out there because of the aliens or the paranormal activity or cryptids? How did he end up being called out there?
Basically, it was a combination of the structured craft and more the cryptid paranormal aspect. The property owner was wanting answers and got tired of dealing with this on his own. And the only place he found was he called the MUFON on a Saturday morning and got hold of Bruce Whitteman again. And Bruce Whitteman was, at that time, Ted Phillips had actually been in and out of MUFON officially over the years. He actually wrote part of their instructional manual of investigation. But he was a good friend of Bruce Whitteman. Gotcha. And Bruce asked Ted as a personal favor if Ted would go out there and get involved in this case. And I will tell you, at the beginning, Ted wasn't too interested in it till Bruce got him some of the writings in the journal. One of the property owner in Site 1 is a prolific writer and takes pictures and writes journals. And when Ted got these journals and started reading these about the light ball activity, the unseen force, the cryptids, the structured craft, but particularly the light balls, and he described the coloration of the light balls, which is what Ted dealt with overseas working for Alan Hynek.
Mm-hmm.
He got out there the next week because he'd seen the similarities in what was going on.
Gotcha.
So that's how he got involved in Marley, and why he virtually spent the rest of his life in Marley.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. I have another question. David Libby asks, is it located near a lot of water, both above or underground?
No, not above. Now, we did explore it. There are no cave structure openings on both pieces of property. We did explore caves in close proximity to the Marley and site 1 and 2 and 3. We actually felt in one area that we found a large cave complex that we weren't prepared to go extensive cave exploring. That really wasn't our thing. We did some of it, but we do feel that the cave complexes do extend under Marley. Now, some of the old timers out there thought they'd seen light balls coming in and out of the ground. So they felt that there was a connection there. We could never establish that, but there are no large bodies of water in conjunction with it. There's ponds, farm ponds and that, but no large body of water or.
Okay. Somebody asked if there's, I'm
quick.
sorry, Erin, go ahead.
So do you believe like there's possibly like Native American ties to this area?
You know, we didn't at first. This goes into family 3 generations back as far as recorded history. We tried to establish a Native American connection with this. We did in the last 3 years find actually a large, on a spring out there, a native encampment with a lot of artifacts, arrowheads and grain grinding stones, and an area that we had a person out there that studied Native American culture. So we did find a connection where they had been on this ground, but there are no Native Americans in that area. So we couldn't find out with this. Teddy contacted the state of Missouri, and we could not find any history that connected to going back that far.
Nothing
we
prominent
there
like
is.
medicine wheel, things like that, things that would really generate that sort of Native American energy, more of just settlement areas.
Right. Yeah, we have none of that. But we actually feel that it goes back that far.
I would think that it would, just that sort of energy that it just, to me, sounds like it's pulling from the ground. It's pulling from the earth within. And, you know, to pull that sort of energy, a Native American or some sort of, you know, human physical being, you know, would have to be tied to that, I would think. I mean, do you believe that?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, it gets into, here again, in the paranormal aspect, some of the old timers around there, unfortunately, we've lost so many people out there now. You know, the average age in the area of the witnesses was, when I started with this, was 67, 65.
Oh my
And
God.
of course, we lost so many in the last, you know, but some of the individuals, and I will just throw it out there, that they seem to have a way, a premonition when the light ball activity and things are going to start. Some of them view it as being demonic and will lock themselves in their house and won't come out, while others, when they have this premonition, they'll come out. And back in the 20s and 30s, some of the locals, it would take folding chairs and picnic tables and use this for a source of entertainment on weekends.
Wow.
I mean, so it's
That's crazy.
Hey, you know what? I mean, if you don't got cable,
Yeah, right?
You guys know we would have been out there doing the same
I-
thing.
exactly. So, like, all right,
Yeah, bottle of Jack Daniels and just sit outside in the chairs. There you go.
right. I would
Well-
have done the same thing. I've been getting my honey bun snacks and sitting out there and going, all right. Everybody
That's
takes a
it.
shot for every ball
Yep.
of light they see.
Somebody's got to bring the Coca-Cola because I'm bringing the bottle of Jack. So
well. I
And
will
what-
tell you though, on top of that though, there, along with that, there are phenomena, there are things that happen out there and just as on Skinwalker, I know you guys have watched that show.
Mhm.
Right.
There are physical effects that they've suffered, and our team has suffered some, myself included. There's a certain effect out there that we found out about. I guess I was probably out there 2 years before I found out about it that much. And there is a phenomenon called the light beam that the ranchers have seen and been exposed to. And then we found out some of them were damaged. And Ted and I we were exposed to that. And I came away with physical damage. And so did Ted's was more immediate, and he shook it off, where I didn't get sick that night as Ted did, but I went home and had a lot of effects: visual, eye damage, scalp damage. So there is that, and this is all documented. But just as on Skinwalker, and again, Ted's research over the years and everything we come to believe, we nailed all the physical damage down to the microwave spectrum, which you're finding out at Skinwalker, that the bad guy is usually microwave energy. And so.
Tom, I was going to ask you about those light beams. I was watching another show that you were on. Do you think, like, when you saw the beams going across the ground, I know you mentioned, like, you thought maybe they were hunting or searching for things? Do you think they were actually maybe like scanning to see if any humans or warm-blooded mammals were out there walking around?
You know, it's the property owners say they act in like a hunting, searching way. They just go around the field. And the first time I was actually witnessed that was I was with a gentleman named, one of our team members, Adam Johnson, which he's grown on in St. Louis, Missouri. He's got a production company and does video for the local PBS channel and things like that. But Adam and I, we were in a deer stand, a long, cold night, 20 degrees for 3-4 hours. And this light came on. I seen it first and swept across the field on a piece of 6-7 acre timber. And at that point, it extinguished. And then the light source was from that vantage point towards us. And the light beam came across the field and came right up to the bottom of the deer stand we were in, and then extinguished. And it was truly, I truly believe, it was just letting us know that it knew exactly where we were.
We found you.
And then, of course, with Ted and I, they reenacted this. Pardon?
Does somebody have their camera or phone or something on YouTube or something?
No, I don't.
I don't either. Okay, try it again.
No, the one thing I will just say that we did an episode, of course, of UFO Witness with Ben Hansen and Melissa Tittle, and they reenacted when Ted and I were in a vehicle, and the light beam came up on us and overtook us, illuminated the car. And I hate to draw the association with Close Encounters, but that's what it looked like. And just this pure white light filled the vehicle, and Ted and I jumped out, which wasn't a wise thing to do. And I know a little bit about lighting, and this beam retracted off us, and you could see a definite cutoff end. And this beam of light retracted in a twisting reflex motion, like an old camera shutter. And the only thing they put on the recreation on the show was they said we seen it go into a structured craft. We didn't see it go into anything. We saw no structured craft. It went into a pinpoint and it just extinguished like that.
Wow.
So how you would recreate that effect, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's, but that's what did damage to us that night. And the property owners, especially on Site 1, had similar physical effects. So I just have to add caution. If you're out there in the field, things can happen to you sometime, and always keep that in the back of your mind.
Right. Absolutely. Goes to show it doesn't matter what you're hunting, what you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, just to kind of tap in on that too. I mean, I think we all need to be aware that there are so many things out here that we don't fully understand.
Right.
And when we're going out there and we're researching these things, that's why it's so great to get people like you to help us understand, because we want to know, but we need to know that you have to do it safely. You have to be smart about this stuff. You don't know what you're walking into. There's
Right.
things out there that are bigger than we are.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and it's such a great moment to be able to talk to you and have this information brought to us and brought to the public, so that way we can still investigate safely and we can still bring knowledge to ourselves and others safely too.
Yep.
So I appreciate that, very much. When people do these interviews with us, I appreciate that, because you're helping us be able to get that information across safely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. It looks like there's one more question. There's another question for you, Tom. It says, is there a lot of limestone in the area?
Yeah, there is, and there again, geologically, Ted looked into that.
Mhm.
We just couldn't find a connection there. He also, there had been at one time, we even tried to cover on site 2 and 3. There were no even high tension lines or power lines even in the area. So we never could find any energy source or any conjunction with that.
Right.
So we did at times with tri-field meters, and we relied on more tri-field analog meters, and because just quite frankly, a lot of the digital stuff we had, the higher tech stuff, usually would be at times taken out, or batteries would drain, same old story.
Same thing. Yeah.
We had circuitry burned out of cameras, and so we always had redundancy. We always believed in simple things like tri-field meters with field coils instead of electronics. Compasses, just plain compasses would work great.
Right.
And I am friends with some of the people that produce Skinwalker, and I know in about the second, third season, he asked me was there anything I could advise them to what they were using and doing, and I just said, I would build in redundancy, more simplistic stuff to back up the high tech, and then the next season I've seen where they were out there with tri-field meters and compasses, and so I like to think I had a little input on that, but
right. They should bring you on Skinwalker Ranch show.
Yeah,
Totally cool.
actually, we're working on that, and
Cool.
and back when we were affiliated for a short time, we can talk about it now. When Robert Bigelow was the man that had it prior to the Skinwalker people now.
Right.
And I love the people out there now too. They try to do everything the right way. But when we worked with Robert Bigelow, his people came out and spent time with us, and we worked in conjunction with them a little bit at Skinwalker. But I will tell you that we performed experiments sometimes in unison or similar experiments, and I could describe those, and they'd sound really boring, but they told monumental things. They had monumental payback, and basically, I just would like to say that, and I'm taking this from all my mentors, believe me, and I'm not name dropping. I'm just doing this for verification for that. I was so lucky to be affiliated with these people, and like Ted Phillips, a gentleman named Ray Stanford, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but boy, if you're not, look up that name, Ray Stanford. And he wrote a book called Sakura Saucer in the Pentagon Closet. And he worked for the government, Project Starlight, which was the first back in the 60s effort to catch UFOs and saucers with laser guided equipment and EMF guided equipment. But Ray was actually at Socorro, New Mexico, the Lonnie Zamora's case, I'm sure you're familiar with. And Ted was there with Alan Hynek. And with Lonnie Zamora. So it was, but the one thing I will tell you that all these gentlemen over the years have pulled away from this is, and now this steps on the toes of a lot of ufologists. They don't like this, but it's all interdimensional and not interplanetary. Now, when I say that, then people always hit me, well, you don't believe in interplanetary life? Then no, I absolutely do. But as these gentlemen schooled me and told me, when you come through the interdimensional portals, or that means, that mechanism, interplanetary is doable and possible, and it happens. If you cannot attain interplanetary travel if you don't go interdimensional. Now, the reason I've been schooled in that, also the explanation, is just its simplicity and practicality. As I was told by a gentleman, was a good friend of mine, Stanton T. Freeman, the nuclear physicist. I'm sure you've heard of him. He described to me, he said, Tom, he said, and I was a Star Trek fan, believe me, I love Star Trek, and this hurt me. But he said, the amount of energy it would take to drive a solid object the size of a pea to light speed would take the combined energy output of the Earth for 100 years. Wow. So you can see the practicality of that. It just can't work that way. But now, interdimensionally, it's easy. It's not, I don't want to say easily for us, but what comes through, it's very doable and easily done. So,
gotcha.
But that gives you a little window into my mindset, what I dealt with these people. So,
Right.
We have another question. They're wanting to know, how does a compass react at Marley Woods?
When you're out and you absolutely know north, the compass will widely swing. Sometimes it will even actually go it'll circle. And it tends to point in the object, in the energy mass, or when we use that in conjunction with tri-field meters, it would usually point towards the energy source. And when I speak about energy source, I'm more or less speaking at times about and Ted really believed we had 3 portals that would open and close at Marley. And like Ted said, when I started in this, Tom, he said, if I'd have said portal, I wish you would have just smacked me, he said. But we truly found it was an indication of when these portals would open up. And so that's what they would do.
Right. Question on the portals. Were the portals stationary, or did they move around? Were they in different areas at different times?
That's a very good question. We had 3 areas where we believe that the main source, they were stationary, and where Ted actually had imagery of things coming through this. As he said, it looked like a door. And I'll just add at this point that I have a YouTube channel with some short movies there, free, you can go watch. And there's a one on Marley Woods that you can get a lot of imagery there Ted took over the years of what he called the doorway, the gateway, and from the light source. And but now, when we get into the cryptids in Marley, we truly believe that the cryptids have the ability to go back and forth interdimensionally at any time, at their will, at any point, anywhere they are.
Yeah, and I've heard other cryptid researchers say that as well.
Yes.
What I did see, what kinds of cryptids have been seen on the property?
Our biggest and most dramatic one that we weren't prepared for when we were there was and this sounds as strange in Skinwalker.
It can sound strange. Not
We are
us.
strange.
It was a large 300 to 400 pound, and this was judged by a cattle rancher that can judge cattle on the hoof by poundage within pounds.
Right.
A 300 to 400 pound white polar bear / sloth type creature that was seen to walk more on its hind legs vertically at times than on all fours. Now, in one point, the gentleman, the rancher, which he was a big game hunter. I mean, he went to Alaska and hunted bear and everything. And he claims this thing, he felt threatened by it. And he shot it at a distance. And he claims he said he made it red, indicating he thought he'd seen blood.
Right.
However, the thing didn't respond like it was injured. And this is, again, where it gets really strange.
Mhm.
He describes it as going through a barbed wire, 4-strand new barbed wire fence. And now when I say go through, I don't mean over or under. He said it looked like it just passed through it like it was smoke or like it dematerialized. It went through this fence without any effort. And we went to that area, and we did. Well, it was a week later before we could get back to the ranch. We did find 16-inch white long hairs, which nothing in that area has 16-inch white long hairs.
No.
And we sent them all. We did microscopy on them. We did crude DNA work on them in the day, and they came back as no known match. And we did get plaster cast of the prints, which there again, Ted estimated, compaction test, approaching what the rancher said, 300 to 400 pounds.
Now,
So-
let me ask you a question, Tom. Was the hair follicles, were they hollow?
Yeah, they were, and but the science of the hair, the whole structure of the hair under microscopy didn't resemble anything they had ever seen.
Okay.
So there were some similarities, but the type of creatures that the similarities, it had a really crude similarity to, are not even located in the United States. So, but the DNA work, which was very crude at the day, not mitochondrial, but they did some. And I'll be honest with you, we did not have the money to do DNA work at the time.
Right.
The lab we sent him to, which was a great friend of Ted's that worked with him in the Heineck days, a woman named Phyllis Budinger, which she's been on several shows in the 60s, 70s. Her lab did work. She did the microscopy, and some people she knew were so intrigued, they actually took it and they wanted to do DNA on it just out of their own curiosity.
Wow.
And so we had that for us. But there again, they came back no known match. So how do you explain that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you don't.
How often is it just the white being, the white cryptid that is seen out there?
Here again is the strangeness of Marley. We have so many what we call one-timers or two-timers. Things will pop up that have never been seen past, or and again, these things, the white cryptid, the white polar bear / sloth type thing that was seen there in the whole extent of a couple weeks, and that was it, and it's never been seen again.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is, and the only Bigfoot sighting, I will tell you, it was not on Marley Woods. It was within, and I'm talking the boundaries of Marley Woods, within a half mile. But it's the only Bigfoot sighting ever in that county was in close conjunction to Marley Woods. So, and we have other cryptid sightings. We have just a wide variety of small, little, what the one individual described them as, little beings or little furry animals that, unlike anything they'd ever seen, that spoke some sort of language out there. So, and then that gets into the really strange stuff as skinwalkers as you can get. When you get into the hooded figures, there's absolutely no explanation for it. And
nothing about that place makes sense. It sounds like
it doesn't.
No.
You know, that's crazy. Now, the hooded figures, do you believe that's like a paranormal demonic type being, or?
It, you know, here again, and there are cases of this that happen very similar to this at Skinwalker, I will tell you. But the property owner on site one has a caretaker that lives on the property, and he has had this experience twice. And I will tell you now, the caretaker will not go out of his trailer at night now for the last
wow.
probably 10 years because
Wow.
he's had so many experience he doesn't want to deal with it anymore. But on his first occasion that he's seen this, and there is a small cemetery on the property, private cemetery, I will tell you, which is so, you know, in conjunction, this same thing you hear all the time. But he came back to the ranch one night from town, and he's seen a progression of these hooded figures. At times, they look like they were floating above the ground, and the man carries a small 22 caliber handgun, which is, you really don't want to challenge anything with that. But he ran down after these figures. He thought they were trespassers, and he kept yelling at this progression of hooded figures. And the one on the very end turned and faced him. And, you know, Ted had to work, I would estimate it probably 2 months to get the caretaker to tell him what he'd seen. Because he didn't think anybody believed him. It was so outlandish. And he said this one figure turned and faced him. And he said it had an extended face that looked like a wolf.
Wow.
And
I think that would keep me inside after dark too.
Yeah. And so like Skinwalker, I will tell you, they've had that exact same entity there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
I did not know that. So
yeah.
I've got a couple questions here. People are asking. I'll get caught up, and then I've got more questions for you. Nighthawk asks, have they used a full spectrum camera at the property?
Yeah, Ted has done that.
Okay.
He has used that with not much, some varied degree of catching some of the light balls and some entities. I will tell you that the greatest tool we found when we did the filming with Ben Hansen and on UFO Witness, Ben had a state-of-the-art thermal imaging unit there. And he gave me, I had a state-of-the-art night vision equipment. And at one point we were up in a deer stand, and Ben asked me, he said, I think I got something. I don't know. Is that a small animal coming out? And I said, because I was so familiar with light balls. And I said, no, Ben, that is spherical and it's off the ground. But the unique thing about this was I could not see it with the night vision or naked eye. And we tracked this thing with the thermal imaging unit, and to the point it got close to us. And then his high-tech piece of several $1,000 piece of equipment just shut down. And I told Ben, I said, is I got a habit of doing that, Ben? And he said, absolutely not. It never has. Yeah. And about that time, it came back on. We got it for a brief instant. We were with radio communication with his team and Melissa on the ground and his producer. They went chasing after this thing. We gave them directions because you couldn't see it by naked eye. And then it looked like it just went through again into another dimensional. It just faded out close to where they were. Now, the unique thing about that for me was I immediately thought how many times over the years that when we seen the light balls would appear visually and with Ted's spectrum camera, I thought, had we had that piece of equipment out there, how many times with thermal imaging had we maybe seen these things coming through in the process, maybe coming through, or they were right around us. You know, we had no idea. So whenever we go back out there, I will tell you, we will have that piece of equipment. And we're working with people now in another production that the piece of equipment that succeeds that is a drone technology with a thermal imaging unit that's next to or as good as what the military's got. And
Wow.
I can only imagine what we can do with that.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
well, that brings me to a good question though. To bring in drone technology, are you experiencing any strange like static or any kind of EMF that would kind of mess with the drone, perhaps, or make
It's
it malfunction? Or
you're absolutely right. And here again, technology is fine, but as it did with Ben's camera, and as they have experienced, you've seen it out at Skinwalker. It's an intellect, an intelligence, as Ted always described it, that it has the ability, like you just stated.
Mhm.
It could take out it can do anything it wants technically. We had light bulbs fly between an old windmill we had cameras on and our structure, and I'm speaking within like 50 foot of our structure. It burned out the circuitry and the cameras, and this will give away the time period, but we had shelves of VHS tapes that we had. Ted kept stored out there, and it wiped these VHS tapes clean as it was professionally done. So
Oh, okay.
does it absolutely, if it does not want to be observed or want us to see this, yeah, it will probably take that equipment out, but we feel we just have to give it a shot. So
Right. Well, and with more modern equipment too. I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask you on that intelligence. I've seen what I thought was an alien craft, and you're too busy staring at it, and not once there was two of us that we even think about picking up our cell phones and taking pictures. So it was like it's almost. Do you think that intelligence has they must have like the power to do that if it's messing with your equipment and stuff? And
yeah.
would you count that as more like ghost and spirit based, or would you count that as UFO alien based?
And there again, I'm only going by what my mentors, and if I got to put my money on anybody, I will put it on the gentleman that I worked with. And we do feel that the alien technology, the paranormal activity, the cryptids, we absolutely believe it stems from one source. It's all one and the same, and it's interdimensional. Now, you can draw your conclusions about what that intelligence is on that side of the dimensional boundary. Some of us that have a religious background will go there for answers, and some others won't. But we absolutely believe it's all one and the same, and it all comes from the same source. But it's a definite intelligence that you can feel, and it's worked with us out there, and it lets you know. Quite frankly, it lets you know who's boss when you're out there. Because
Well,
John was out there
are
with
you
us.
having issues? I've noticed that in other places, such as Skinwalker Ranch, that they have high radiation levels, like almost near dangerous levels. Are you experiencing any of that there?
Not in the nuclear type. We've experienced that in the microwave arena,
Okay.
frequency range. And there again, when I felt because of the physical damage that happened to me, and Ted and I always made up my mind when I'd bring people back out there, I would be well prepared to warn them. And I bought a new piece of equipment when we went out there and filmed and spent days out there, devoted purely to microwave radiation spectrum. And it had visual cues. It had green, yellow to red, and audible cues also along with that. And 3 times when we were out there at 3 a.m. in a field, no power lines around, nothing, this took off and went into danger range, luckily for a brief instant. But I truly, as I told Ben when we were out there, I really believe it's just letting me know that it's out there. That was a sign to me that it's very much there yet, and showing me what it can do at any time. Because had this period lasted longer, in the red area, doing damage to cells and physical people, and it would have done. We were lucky it quit when it did, terminate it when it did.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's definitely it's a silent killer. It can kill you. I mean, with
Yeah.
long exposure.
oh yes,
Right.
and believe me, I'm not going to even get into. We've had cattle mutilations out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Worst case, the horse barn incident, which if you've heard my podcast or anything,
Oh yeah. Those
that
are
was
questions
very
all
graphic.
both the cattle mutilation and the horse barn incident. I'd like if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, and Ted on one of the last cattle mutilations, Ted was brought in on, examine it, and then when you get into that, you know what to look for, and there's no predation, there's no predators involved, nothing will touch these carcasses. Behind one of the barns, there was a large pile of dead animals from the years the rancher had experienced probably over the years that he could remember, probably 33, 34 incidents of cattle.
Wow,
And then,
that's a lot.
yeah. And then the most dramatic thing that ever happened to rancher, and I will tell you that the rancher on site 2 and 3, it affected him to the point where he actually burned down the remains of a barn, and he had I'll shorten this whole thing, but what that involved was he had a favorite horse. He would go down, he had a habit in the morning, he'd bring it sugar. He'd run the fence line, he'd check in on the horse, give it sugar. He'd walk the fence line, was within sight of the barn. Like 20 minutes later, no sounds, no noise. He come back by the barn and he noticed the gate was ajar. He knew that wasn't right. He goes in the barn and he described what he seen was just a slaughterhouse. And this gets very graphic, I'll warn you, but he described as seeing chunks of horse flesh hanging from the rafters, blood all over covering. This horse just basically looked like it exploded.
Wow.
Now, we got out there. Unfortunately, we didn't have a full-time presence. We got out there 3 weeks later. We did take soil sampling from the blood and scraped pieces of wood off with the blood and sent that in for analysis. No anomalies, but no explosives were involved, they found. And Ted, again, was exposed to this overseas when he worked for Alan Hynek. Mm-hmm. And what he ran this by some of his friends that were still worked with Alan Hynek and that were still alive at the time. And they all determined that this was, again, as overseas, the damage was done. It was microwave in origin. Now, Ted's explanation was it was as if this horse was put in a microwave oven and it was just exploded. Now, wow. What does that to an animal and why?
Yeah. Two things here real quick. Aaron, I know you have to go. So we're going to say goodbye to you.
I do. I'm sorry. I did a lot of readings this week and I need to recoup, but I really wanted to be able to hear some of this tonight, and I wanted to be able to meet you as well. And I'm very sorry. I have to. I'm doing.
Go to bed.
I'm doing some spiritual cleansing.
Go to bed.
A very long week of just a lot of readings, and we're doing some more readings next week and galleries. So I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing the information, sharing your knowledge. And also, I just want to make a quick little point. I really appreciate you keeping this location from people. I think it's very important that you have from a scientific standpoint, that you have a very good area to be able to analyze and also keep it from being contaminated and there's not always good investigators, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
The area. And so I just wanted to tell you, thank you for keeping this a private location for the people that live in the surrounding areas who do call that area home. and whatever other entities that live there call it home. And, and to keep it to a level where we can scientifically investigate this area with proof, as opposed to just, well, there could be some interference here, there, or wherever.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
thank you for doing that and keeping this location
Private.
private. Yes. I mean, I don't know how many people say that, but I appreciate that.
Well,
So thank you.
A
Thank you
hidden
so much.
treasure.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you guys. I'm
Good
sorry.
night, Aaron.
Good night, Aaron.
My
Good night.
psychic stuff has
Bye.
gone belly up. So
Talk to you
Right.
later.
And
bye,
then,
guys. Bye, Terry. It was nice to
Bye.
see you. It was so fun to see you this weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
and real quick, Anthony just messaged he lost his internet service, and it's probably because of the hurricane he's going through.
Well, I kind
Yeah,
of
I
figured that's
bet.
what happened.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
real quick, back on the horse deal. Do you think the
Yes.
farmer, with that horse being his prized, horse, do you think that he did something to upset them, maybe, or where it was like a payback type thing?
It is possible. I will tell you that we do feel at times that fear is a tool that's used out there. Now, whether they gain, as so thought, energy from people from fear, or it's just a mechanism used to test people, manipulate people. But
Mhm.
I personally can think of no other reason that this was done but to instill fear. And I will tell you, the surrounding ranchers in that area, when they got hold of this story, I mean, there was a great deal of fear
Sure.
in that area, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. Roxanne wants to know, are the wildlife affected around the area?
There has been occasions on one of the site one has on the furthest extent of the property boundaries on a hilltop where actually some phone lines go through. A lineman was up there after a thunderstorm working, and he goes up there to tend to some lines, and he finds 10 deer on the ground lying there dead. Now, of course, people would think, well, it's lightning did this. They brought in a veterinarian, and the veterinarian absolutely said that he could see no sign that this was done by lightning. He actually examined 2 of the animals out of the herd, 10 deer. He could find no physical reasons. He did a few crude. He didn't spend too much time on these deer, but he did a few chemical analysis and sent things in, and he couldn't come up with any chemical poisoning or anything like that. So at one point, there were 10 deer that were just laying there dead for whatever reason. All pointed there again in the same direction, which kind of denotes that were they observing something from that direction, or
maybe instead of like a cattle mutilation, it was some type of that, but with deer.
Yeah, that went bad or went wrong from them, and so it's but yeah, there has been other animals affected, and so it's, you name it, and it's probably happened in Marley. And I will tell you that when, of course, Jacques Vallée stayed with us out there, and when after his time with Ted out there, his statement was that he thought that there was a higher case for strangeness to occur in Marley than at Skinwalker. So that's saying quite a bit.
Right.
That's saying a lot. That's saying a lot.
Well, and it's almost like whatever that intelligence is out there, it's their space. And like you said, if you push it too far, then it seems to instill that fear factor to where everybody kind of backs off for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I did watch the UFO Witness, and it seemed like when you were out there walking around in the dark, it was almost like those balls of light was hunting you guys. I mean, they definitely had you in their track of vision and was just seeing how far y'all were going to go.
I will tell you, with Melissa Tittle out there and Ben, a couple times, they've done this stuff a long time, and there were a couple times, and especially Melissa, I, unfortunately, over the years, my hearing isn't what it should be. So Melissa was the first one, got a keen sense of hearing. She picked up on this before anybody, and Ben did, and then I did. There were a couple times that the insect sounds of the night, and it was they documented that in part of that show. She said, listen, guys, she goes, and I mean, it went completely dead, unnaturally silent. There were no sounds, nothing. And you could actually feel almost a presence there, like you could expect anything to occur a couple times. Mm-hmm. And so, that was there also. And she set REM pods, as you've seen on the show, around various places, around the tree stand that Ben and I were in. And several times these things would go crazy. I mean, they would and they said they made sounds and they've never seen these REM pods they had perform in the manner they did out there. So,
wow, that's incredible. Yeah. That whole place just blows me away.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, and that, and I live in Missouri and that it's so close,
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Do you believe there's anywhere else around the United States that has something similar besides Skinwalker Ranch?
I absolutely do. And this comes into play now with, there's a great state director of MUFON now, a mutual UFO network. And you may have heard of her, Debbie Ziegelmeyer.
I got to meet Debbie. I was just at that Cape Girardeau, and I got to hang out with Debbie on a Saturday afternoon.
She is my sister. She's not really my sister, but we've been around so long together that we're like sister and brother. And we started actually for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Dive Team, years ago for John Schuessler and MUFON. And but she's a great state director, and Margie Kay is the assistant state director.
Mm-hmm.
Does a
I've
great
met
job.
Margie Kay.
Yeah,
I've met her. Yeah,
yeah, she does a great job for Deb. And but I will tell you that I've learned through Deb that, and I've heard this from other people in other states now. I'm not officially affiliated with MUFON anymore. I don't have the time or the resources. I've got to pick my battles. And but Debbie keeps me informed that now, even in Missouri, for whatever reason, the time period we're coming into, I do believe the dimensional boundaries are weakening. And I will tell you that Deb's got 2 more sites in Missouri now that are getting to be as active almost as Marley Woods.
Oh, wow.
Just in Missouri?
Yes.
Yeah.
Holy
2
cow.
more in Missouri.
Wow.
And I will tell you, I've heard this from other state directors that in other states. So this is becoming more prevalent. It really is, for whatever reason.
Right. Another question. Daryl asked, has anybody heard any loud humming sounds out there?
Some of the individuals have experienced that. Now, I don't know if it's as far as myself, it could be a function of my bad hearing. But there again, other individuals pick up on this and hear that. And while other individuals in the crowd, or when we have team members, when we had them out there, didn't experience this. But there again, we learned the phenomena has a very, at times visually and audibly directional capability that if you're not in the exact right place at the right time, you won't experience it.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever run like any EVP sessions out there? Gotten audio. Where you can hear voices or hear what they're saying.
We did in the last in the end when we were really out there. We experimented with that a little bit. I can't tell you we had any great success with that. We never really did. But there again, Ted called this his living laboratory, and where we monitored and as Jacques Vallée and others, Douglas Trumbull told us, he said, we really believe this is the phenomena. It's living laboratory. They're monitoring and experimenting on you, and it's not the way you think it is. So,
right. And I believe, like, too, they know who everybody is that's out there, like they allow you to be there. Is
Yeah,
that
Right.
you're absolutely right.
Well,
And,
and Tom, you also said that you got to be in the right place at the right time. So maybe you just weren't there.
that's it. And you know, it gets into the directional aspect of this, and I'll tell you, the one portal site it's on site 2 and 3, and when we viewed this, when it would kick off an opening, what Ted figured he thought this thing was opening, we could see it from the deck on site 1. Now, one instance, the property owner was on the deck with binoculars, and we had radials. And Ted said, "Tom, let's get to that site." We knew exactly where the portal was through the years, that location.
Okay.
So we jumped in my vehicle. We drove across county roads and got in the backside of this property, which is an extensive process through gravel, the dirt roads, through timber. And we got to the location where we knew it should be. We see no artifact of this portal, the light or anything. And just accidentally, I backed my vehicle up. I stepped on my brake light, and the property owner back on the deck said, "Tom, I can see you're right there. I can see your brake light next to the portal, the light."
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting there, and we see no artifact of this light at all.
Wow.
And now, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to explain that.
Yeah.
Kim wants to know, do you see any sparks in the air at night?
No, not really. You know, it gets, and I usually get so many people ask about structured craft, you know,
Mhm.
that we've
Now,
seen.
that was my next question.
We had on one occasion, I will tell you that the property owner of Site 1 had one of the most dramatic events out there that you could see. Him and his wife had seen one night coming back from town. And you're talking a large 150-foot long cylindrical jet black with rows of lights that were illuminated from the inside yellow. And the property owner's wife thought her only explanation was it was starting to get dark. She thought, why is somebody getting an oil tank or something delivered at night by helicopter? I mean, that's the only way she could describe this event. But of course, then they're watching this, and it goes from a dead stop, and then instantly it's out of sight almost, as so often is reported.
Wow.
So,
Well, Daryl has a question that I'd like to know myself. It says, is there anyone who has experienced time loss that cannot be explained?
yeah, and this gets into I'll encapsulate this down again to a very short report. And it also involves the time loss, which as so often happens, into a possible abduction story. And the very interesting case was, and this was a property owner that is not on site, directly on site 1 or 2 and 3. It's on a county road, which is in about a half a mile of proximity to Marley Woods. Now, what they experienced was, and this actually happened back in the 60s, and the one farmer had his son, a special needs child, we'll just say, that was his boy. And it was in the first snow in the late fall. They had a light snow, and on a Saturday morning, they made the child his favorite breakfast. And the child had a habit, and this sounds so strange, but there was a light snow on the ground, which comes into play. The child had a habit, he'd run outside and do something and come back for breakfast. He ran out the front door, and the mother made his favorite breakfast, which was pancakes. And they yelled for the kid. The kid didn't come back. They went out, and what was really strange was his barefoot tracks terminated at the end of their concrete sidewalk, which went into the county road, and just ended there. Didn't turn around, come back. It just terminated. The kid disappeared for 3 days. They had no sign of this child.
Wow.
Wow.
They actually had the sheriff's department came out. And of course, their first thoughts were he got in the farm pond somehow behind the house. They searched in that. They couldn't find the child. I mean, they were just heartbroken over this.
Mhm.
And it was 3 days later. The mother and father are in the kitchen. In walks the child in the front door and asks when breakfast is going to be ready.
Wow.
So in his time span, he had sensed no time differentiate
Right.
in this
Right.
period. It was as he went out to him and came right back in. Now,
Oh,
this was 3 days later. Now, his clothes weren't damaged. They weren't like he went through the woods or he wasn't wet. He was in good shape physically. His feet were in good shape. And they had a doctor check this kid out. There were no signs of hypothermia or anything like that. So how do you explain that?
Right.
sounds like abduction. Sounds like abduction to me, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Now, we have no further way of finding that out. Unfortunately, the child died later, about 4 or 5 years later,
Aw.
and but of natural causes. But so there again, the abduction scenario, it really seems like that's a possibility there because
Absolutely.
How
How
else do you
else
explain
can you
it?
explain it? Right. Exactly. Nancy asked, have you had any telepathic convos with any entity exiting the portal?
no, we haven't. No, we haven't. I can say that except like I would tell you that just our intuition, and Ted felt at times like we could communicate with this intelligence, as he called it sometimes.
Mhm.
And so we really never had that.
Mhm.
But like I said, we do believe this all comes from the same source.
Yeah, that's. I mean, there's everything here. There's nothing in the paranormal realm that is left out, and that's what
Yeah.
blows me away.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it blew us away too. I will tell you, the high strangeness. When you thought you were dealing with when you thought you've seen it all, experienced it all, there would be a new kink in it, a new twist, and there again, was this being done for our benefit? Experimenting on us.
Right. Exactly.
So to
Exactly.
see how we'd respond. So,
Right. Do you ever see out there, just way up high in the sky, any UFOs? Not that they're low, or just see something crossing over, any type UFO type crafts.
Yeah, I've got a couple images of on my YouTube channel
Mhm.
of Ted a couple times caught an imagery, actually in one instance, and one of the best images he ever got was out of the light source. You can clearly see what looks, all intents and purposes, as a disc coming out, the same coloration as the light source at that point. And no sooner did it come out, you can see a very short, what looks like a light beam coming out of the bottom of the disc, going down and not extending to the ground, but you can just see like a short light beam coming out of the disc that just came out of the portal or light source.
Wow.
So that's one of the best images we have, actually.
Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
And as you said, we have it all. You talk crop circle. Well, Ted didn't like to refer to them as crop circles. He called them agroglyphs. Or in the old days, when he worked with Alan, they called them saucer nest. Was the terminology. But we had a agroglyph because Ted would only call them agroglyphs if we'd never seen them in conjunction with a UFO. But we had agroglyphs out there, and there again, one time we had a 14-foot wide cattle run where the rancher would run his cattle through from one piece of property. This 14-foot cattle run had an agroglyph put down in from fence to fence inside the run without touching the sides. And I will tell you that it was a perfect agroglyph circle. Ted took sampling out of that, and of course, like in agroliths that are done, that it had node eruption. You could clearly see it wasn't a natural phenomenon. Now, the cattle actually, up to the point of 3 years after this was done in this run, the farmer actually had to move the cattle run away from that site. The cattle would not set. How they sense, we could pick up on no EMF,
Right.
no chemical reason. There again, I think the cattle dimensionally somehow picked up on this. The cattle would not set one hoof in that ring, even to the point when you couldn't see where the ring was anymore. And they broke through a 4-strand barbed wire fence rather than
Wow.
through
To
that
get
area.
away. Wow.
That's amazing. That's crazy. Kim asks if, I know you had elaborated on, like the health issues of being out there, but she asked if investigators get dizzy, headaches, nosebleeds when active in the area.
Headaches are common. Yeah, can be common. In Ted's instant, he actually got sick, vomited actually from this, of course, in my case, it ended up, I had scalp burns. I got home, they treated me. They tested for shingles. It wasn't shingles. Local rural doctor thought, well, you got sunburn somehow in your head. And well, that didn't make any sense, but I couldn't touch my scalp. It was burned or hurt so bad. And
Wow.
I will tell you, in a period of in a couple months, my hair went, and I have photo images to back this up with the same haircut. My hair went from dark brown to what you see today, blonde or white. And then I had vision problems. I had a macular cyst. I had cataracts, which is commonly microwave energy. Your eyes are the most sensitive part to microwave radiation. So I had that damage. So, and that's all documented. So it happens.
Wow. And yet you still continue to go back. Why is that?
Yeah, it's just I feel I owe it and to the people and to Ted's work. And that was a rare occasion. But that is why I felt so devoted when I brought people out there, that I keyed in on the microwave spectrum, that I could warn people when this would happen to get out of there,
Right.
And but it's just, and it's like Skinwalker. Why do those people keep going back? They get sick.
Right. Do you feel like you're being drawn to it? Like it's something is pulling you, to the location?
I not any more than a natural curiosity in my case, and just I feel I owe it to the people, and Ted Phillips, he wanted this to get out to the people, and back in the day we didn't have internet connection out there. He wanted to rig up a system with trail cams and get to the internet, and now I'm looking into internet is still not widely available out there. It's better, but it's still spotty. But now you can get trail cams that are cellular that work like go to your cell phone. And when that's out, we've looked into ways going to this network going to a sat phone, which is a satellite phone, but that's cost prohibitive, I will tell you. And we're working with people to help us maybe eventually on that. So we're looking for big things maybe to happen. And we're working with people in the media. So all I can tell you right now is stay tuned. So we hope to be doing a lot more one day, and you'll be able to see what's going on possibly on a website, and you'll be able to go on a website and actually aid us and monitor these cameras.
Wow.
And
That would be amazing. Yeah. That would be.
Yeah.
and that's what Ted always wanted. And Ted was working. Had we had the drone technology they've got now, Ted was putting model cameras on, duct taping cameras on model airplanes back then. And had we had the drone technology that they got now, I mean, who knows? But there again, as you said, if it allows you to do this and wants you to,
Right.
That's what I was going to say. It's going to be interesting to see when you start flying more modern equipment, how long it takes for them to go, well, wasn't that tricky, but let me show you this and take out a drone.
Right.
Skinwalker, what happens?
Yeah. They've tried it out there.
It takes out and does what it wants to do. So you got to work around that.
Well, as far as the research, and don't you think, like, I mean, I know as far as the paranormal, if you go to a certain place, a lot of times it's almost like, oh gosh, here she comes again. So I'm going to let her see this time. So don't you think with you guys, since you keep it, like Aaron said, that you keep it a small group, so when you show up, they're like, oh well, yeah, Tom is back with some friends, and it's almost, I mean, it's almost curious to see what's going to pop out of that inner dimension or those portals that you talk about.
You're right. And I did have the sense when we were with Ben, I did part of what we showed. We're hoping to actually have another show or two out of what we filmed out there. But there was occasion out there where I directly felt this. And I told Ben a couple times when we first got there, I said, I know it knows we're out here right now, Ben. It's watching us. I felt it. And then I had a few signs that it did that as far as the microwave and other things, EMF. So, and you just get that feeling, you know it. And it's hard to explain. I don't have to explain that to you, but, and it was just telling, and it was very real. And everything that happened out there that night, I will vouch for it happened just the way it was depicted. And so
it'd kind of be fascinating though to see if you can get those cameras set up, like where there's no humans on the property. Is it going to be smart enough to figure out you're watching it, you know, electronically, you're sitting miles from home in your living room? Because like you said, when you step out on that property, it seems to know that you're there. Yeah.
And I will tell you that there's a phenomenon. The property owner on Site 1 still last winter sent me several photos. He still puts out the old trail cameras around the place and has his caretaker do that religiously. And he sent me different groups of photos, which is really monument. I mean, in one instance, he had on a deer run where the deer come through a lot. They're prevalent on a feed lot. The deer in several images, he captured a light ball, and these deer are standing there staring at this light ball. And at one instance, you can even see the deer illuminated by the light from this light ball. And there's 3 deer standing there, you know, looking at this light ball. Now, did the deer set off the trail cam or did the light ball? We don't know. And I did post some of those images, and of course, some of the debunkers in that, you know, they say, oh, trail cams, that the light, that was bugs, you know, that was right. Well, you know, when you've got 20 degrees, there are some insects that could possibly, but 20 degrees in the winter, it's very unlikely it is bugs. And
it is not bugs.
No,
and I don't think those several deer are going to all be looking and focused on the same object, you know, so they had to see it or sense it as well.
Absolutely.
Right. But you can clearly see it as a light ball, and it even illuminates the deer, you know.
Wow.
So, and they're all focused on the same point. So
I have a quick question. You know, talking about the light balls and that. Have you heard of the Joplin spook lights?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so next weekend we're going to a convention, and a friend of ours is running that, and he has investigated that thoroughly, and he's taken us over there. And I'm wondering if it's something similar, you know, to what is actually happening at Marley Woods.
You know, I will tell you that in years, and I mean probably back in I'd say around 70. Ted actually investigated that and took several. Ted Phillips was actually a professional photographer at one point, and he took a lot of images out there. And he did feel that was pretty much the same phenomenon at times. That that now there's other things, issues that go on out there at times, but yes, I'm told, and I've never been out there myself, but I'm told that you can clearly see it sometimes that this is not something that's automobile headlights at a distance,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, our friend has researched it. I mean, a whole lot, and even did a documentary on it. And Terry and Brandy both know. Dave Glidden is his name, and it's. I mean, he's looked at theories, everything from gases to all kinds of things. So it's pretty interesting to me, and I've never personally seen anything like that. So I'm kind of excited to go out there and see it. To
I am
witness it.
too. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, pretty good chance to see something there.
Yeah, I'm hoping. That's what they say, that it's 1 minute it can be going as fast as your car, and the next minute it's just, in the tree line. So I'm pretty curious about that. Fuzzy asked, another person on one of Ben Hanson's programs, and they explained that the program had changed. You mentioned where the light beam end was changed, Ben's. Should his programs be taken lightly?
I didn't know Ben before we started working with him on that show, and we're working on another project which is called Project Moonshaft, which has nothing to do with Marley. Which Ted had two projects in his life that took up his life, which was Moonshaft and Marley Woods, and but I will tell you, everything I've done with Ben, I absolutely think he's the real deal. He's actually, I found him to be the skeptic in the bunch that wants to get to the bottom of it.
Right.
So,
Right. And I remember watching him years ago on Fact or Faked, and I thought he was pretty credible back then. Terry, have you met him? Because I know
I have met Ben Hansen several times, and I actually got to UFO hunt with him out back of Ashmore Estates. And yeah, I think he's very reputable, and his heart and soul is right there in it.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new things you come out with. I'm a huge fan. And I'm not that far from you, so I'd like to meet you for lunch sometime. Sit and chit chat about this some more. Sure.
That'd be great.
This whole interview has kind of left me with 1,000 more questions. It just sparked more interest, and I'm like, oh no.
You'll be like me, Brandy. You start on one thing, and 3 hours later, you're still like clicking on another button on that darn computer.
About 2 a.m., I'm going to be like, I need to sleep. I've got to go to work.
Now you know what we go through.
Exactly.
It's really, and the property owners, I'll tell you, over the years, they want answers to this, and it's just.
Well, it seems like it just keeps getting stranger. So it
is. And
it's like the more you find out about Marley Woods, it seems like the more it changes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just when you think you've got something figured out, well, no, you don't.
Something else. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think the government has anything to do with this, or they know about it, or what can you talk about that?
I will tell you that they know about it. Do we think that they're responsible? And we've had a lot of accusations over the years, believe me, but we really have not ever seen a connection that they're responsible for any of this. Now, we do know that they know, of course, Ted actually worked, when you worked with Alan Hynek, you worked with Blue Book, and you worked with those people, and you were affiliated with them. So, of course, there was that connection. And I've met some of those people, and I will tell you that they know a lot more than, of course, now what we're dealing with. And that brings into a whole new arena that I just been talking about lately myself. Things that I worked with the state director of MUFON, Bruce Whitteman, things that we worked with people. We actually worked with agencies of the government at times that wanted to start, downloading some facts, and actually now it gets into what some of us have known, that at some point, we really believe, and I learned from other people, there's going to be a large, what they call a false flag operation that's portrayed on mankind. And it's, so many people want disclosure, and I truly believe disclosure will come one day. But their hands are being forced, I will tell you, and it's not going to be the way people think it's going to come down, and it's not going to be there again. It's not so much interplanetary as it is dimensionally based. So just putting that out there that
I watched that video that you did on false flags, and I tell you what, Brandy, that's one to watch tonight. And you will not sleep tonight because your brain will just be, oh, you think that's for real?
I'm gonna have to wait till Friday night. I have got to go to work.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you come out with more of that, because that really makes you think.
Yeah,
All right.
we covered some areas there that
Right, exactly. I definitely appreciate you coming on here tonight. I mean,
Yes.
just like Brandy said, I still have so many more questions for you, and honest, seriously, if you're up to it, we'd love to sit down and meet with you for lunch sometime and talk a little more about this.
I was going to ask, do you do events or go to conventions, Tom?
I don't. We used to, back in the day with Ted Phillips, he did lectures around the country. And our team, usually myself and Adam Johnson, accompanied Ted, and sometimes Debbie Ziegelmeyer. But we went on the West Coast, California. We went everywhere from the West Coast to Aztec, New Mexico, to the East Coast, and in between. And Ted mainly did that. Unfortunately, the reality is you got to have funding to do this stuff.
Right.
He would do that for the funding, and believe me, when Ted did a lecture, he had a dry sense of humor. He had the facts and data from his years of research. I've never seen anybody better than Ted Phillips at a MUFON conference or a lecture at a college or university or an aerospace company, actually. And but his heart was always out in the field. That's where he wanted to be, doing the research and back in Marley. And the sad fact of it is that I've been approached a couple of times to do some things, and we're going to do things. I feel the key way to do this is visually on the actually producing some documentaries and maybe a show. But the lecture circuit takes up so much time, and it's so intensive, and the crowds have changed over the years that used to go to these. And so it's really, you can put your whole life out there doing that. And it's just, you just got to pick your battles and where you got to be. So.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in here tonight. I mean, it's been, I'm honored that you agreed to come on our show and talk about this, because I mean, Brandy can tell you, Aaron can tell you, and even Terry could probably tell you, I've posted a lot about Marley Woods. It intrigues me. It fascinates me. And I'm truly honored and thankful that you decided, to do this show with us.
We appreciate it.
Yes.
I loved it. And I just want to throw out there again, just go to do a search on YouTube, my name, my channel. And I've got videos on there. I did a very good interview with Jacques Vallée, a tribute to Ted when he passed. And Jacques Vallée speaks about his time on this at Marley Woods, how strange it was, and some of the occurrences that he took part in out there.
Yeah.
So I just urge people, go out there and watch like Jacques Vallée speaking, and Ted Phillips himself, the early years. I have a very early black and white roll that they did on Ted. And you get to know, and one on Marley Woods. So you get to see everything on that, really.
Yeah. And tomorrow, to let all the viewers know, I will post your YouTube and all that on our Blondes and Booze page and several others. I know there's some cryptid people watching. So on some of them that I'm on, I will post your link too for everybody.
That's great. And I do Facebook. I do Marley Woods Research Center Facebook
Mhm.
page, and my own is dedicated just to posting what's coming, what's up on Marley Woods, what happened. So you can catch it there too. So
Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate everybody. And next, what is it, Brandy? October 6th, we have our next show is about psychic kids. So totally different topic, but it'll be a good one too. So everybody, if you would tune in next Thursday, October 6th for that. So we're going to say goodbye to everybody. And if you guys have any questions at all, definitely you can message us, and I'll definitely keep in contact with you, Tom, if that's okay.
Yes.
And
that'd be fine.
for sure. And we
great.
can try to get
And
questions answered.
on the Blondes and Booze page, we do have a chat open if you want to just leave your question there, and we'll get back to it as soon as we possibly can. Because most of the time there's somebody on our site. We don't sleep. We try. We try.
Yeah.
We don't sleep though. We try.
Right. We don't. So thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye bye.
you.
Thank you, Tom.
I loved it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.